Hi, this is Susan Campfield with SueStampfield.com. Thank you so much for stopping by today. Today I have an adorable little treat holder. I've chosen to decorate mine in a graduation style, but you could use this for a lot of different events depending on how you decorate the front. What we have is a little mini file folder, and inside perfectly fits a Ghirardelli chocolate. And because I'm doing graduation theme, I also put a little cash in there. And on the chocolate, I chose to use the mint, and it says, "Congratulations on your accomplishment." So let me just show you how to make this fun little project. I got this idea from demonstrator Ginny Merck, and she had a great video. So let me show you how I did mine with the graduation theme. We're going to start with a piece of very vanilla cardstock. I chose vanilla because it's more of a file folder color to me. So I have my Stampin Trimmer, and I've cut my very vanilla cardstock to be 5 inches by 3 inches. So I'm going to go into my paper trimmer, and I'm going to score this at 2 1/4 inches. I don't want the cutting blade, so I'm going to slide that down. The scoring blade is the light gray, and then I'm going to slide over to 2 1/2 inches. Now what that's going to give me is a piece that is shorter on one side than the other, which is going to give us that file folder tab in the back being a little bit higher than the one in the front. So on the shorter piece on the front, I want to add a piece of designer paper. I'm going to use this pattern. It's from the Kaleidoscope packet of papers, but you could use any paper for this. It'd be a great way to use up as scrap. So again, my piece size is 2 1/4 by 3, and that fits exactly on one side of the folder. So I'm going to attach that using snail adhesive. We attach the paper first because we want to punch them both at the same time instead of having to trim around something later. So we're going to go in and we're going to punch this now with the envelope punch board. I'm going to try to tilt it here so that you can see. You see the edge of my paper is lining up with the little plastic piece inside. So in that little opening, I've got the edge of my cardstock lined up with the edge of the plastic piece, and I'm ready to punch. I'm going through two layers of paper here with the designer paper and the cardstock, so I find it easier to stand up and punch that. It's just a little bit stiffer because of the 2 layers. So we've got that first tab punched. Now we're going to slide it over to the 2-inch mark, and you're going to punch again. And then we're going to rotate it so that the designer paper is still up, but at the bottom. I'm going to line up the left side of my cardstock again with that little opening. Tilt it up so you can see, just like we did on the first one. And punch. And this one will be much easier to punch because we're just going through one layer. Slide over to the 2-inch mark and punch again. Now I'm just going to be trimming off these little pieces here to form our file folder. So I'll bring my trimmer back in. This time I do want the cutting blade, so I'm going to slide that up. And I'm going to lay my project in here so that I can see the track. So there is a little track here. That's where the blade slides. I want to slide my piece over so I can just barely see in this little divot a bit of that track. So that way I know that I'm going to be cutting in the right area. Put your blade down and go pretty slowly, and you'll feel it when you have no resistance. That means you're through, and you should stop because you don't want to cut off your tab. So we've got that little piece cut off, and now we'll flip it around and do the other side. This one, again, you've got a layer of designer paper and a layer of cardstock. So this one, you might need to go up and then back again to get it cut all the way through. So we want to add some ribbon, but before we do that, I do want to stamp my greeting on my file tab here. And so I'm going to grab my StazOn ink pad, and I'm using the Bravo stamp from the Dozen Thoughts stamp set. And I'm going to go ahead and ink it up here with my StazOn Jet Black, and I want to stamp it on this tab. Now I want to make sure that I get it over to the right almost as far as I can, and that's just because this tab sticks up and it's going to cover up my words otherwise. So to help me get it right where I want it, I'm going to bring in a tool. I'm going to grab my Stamp-O-Ma-Jig, This is the plastic imaging sheet that comes with that, and I pre-stamped my word on there. And when I stamped my word, I stamped it with my block tight to this T-bar, both the top and the side. So now when I remove this imaging sheet and stamp my image, it will go right where it showed up on the plastic. So there I've got my Bravo in there nice and tight. And now I'm ready to add my ribbon. For ribbon, I'm using the 1/8 inch grosgrain ribbon, and I'm just going to tie that in a nice tight knot. I don't want to put my candy in yet, because if I put my candy in, it's hard to get it tight enough. This way, when I slide the candy and the money in, they're not going to go anywhere because it'll be nice and tight. Okay, we're ready to add in our candy and decorate the front. So the owl, as you can imagine, is done with the Owl Builder punch. And then I've made a little graduation cap out of scraps of black cardstock. So let me walk you through the steps for the owl. Now our owl is wearing glasses because he is a smart owl. He just graduated. You're going to take your owl punch and you're going to punch out the body from Smoky Slate. You're going to take the 1 1/4 inch scallop punch and punch out your wings from the Smoky Slate. Using my owl punch, I cut the back side of my glasses with that larger eye here. So here's how I like to stamp the pupils. First of all, I go in, or the eyes I should say, I go in and I punch out the little holes, the smallest holes in your Owl Builder punch, just like that. And then upside down, I go back in, I line up the punches I just made so that I can get a little circle that has that hole in it for the pupil. Since I'm mounting this on my black glasses piece, that is going to end up giving me that black center of the eye. For my owl, I chose to do some orange feet. So I punched on the edge of a piece of cardstock. This is the lower portion of the owl. I actually do like to trim a little bit of that excess off. Just need enough to stick it on, really. I just want the feet to show. And then I will trim off the gray feet so that I now will have the orange feet. For the beak of the owl, I actually used the heart that comes right on the owl punch. So I punched that out in pumpkin pie cardstock, and that point is what's going to make our beak. I'm going to cut my wings and then put our owl together. The wings come from the 1 1/4 inch scallop punch punched in the Smoky Slate, and I'm going to cut it in half. But when I cut it in half, I start halfway between 2 scallops. That's going to give me a nice little wing tip. Can you see how that looks more wing-like instead of just cutting a full scallop? So now I'm going to put my owl together, and to do that I'm going to use glue dots and a 2-way glue pen. So for the bow or temple of the glasses, I'm going to use this 1/16 inch piece of basic black cardstock, and I'm going to, and I'd like to do this before I put the eyes on, so I'm going to put a glue dot on the back of the eye and flip that over, and I'm just going to lay the end of that basic black right into the glue dot. I want a good portion of that onto the glue dot so I know that that's not going anywhere, and that will be one side of my glasses. So snip that off, and I'm going to go ahead and put a second glue dot on that and stick it on my project. Since I covered up the first glue dot almost completely, and you just want to overlap that heart nose so that just the point is showing. So there we have our little smarty owl started, and I'm going to bring in my paper trimmer and I'm going to show you real quick how I made the graduation cap. So I have my paper trimmer here, And I have a 1/2 inch piece of cardstock. I'm going to line this cardstock up so that it is on a diagonal with the little squares that are on the grid part of my paper trimmer. Can you see how I'm lined up with those squares? And then I'm going to use my cutting edge. I do want to hold my cardstock down on this plastic piece because I don't want it to slide. And then I'm going to cut it. Now that's going to give me the angle that I'm after. I'm going to slide over to a 1/2 inch. And I'm just lining up the angle I just cut with that grid. And I can double check that I'm straight by lining up again with the boxes. And again, hold your paper down with your finger and slide. And that's going to give you this diamond shape that makes a great mortar board. For the cap part of our mortar board, I used the 3/4 inch circle punch and a scrap piece of basic black cardstock. I just punched it out halfway. And then I glued it on. Doesn't need to be a lot of glue because I'm going to add a brad for security, but it doesn't always go through both layers, so I want to make sure I've got some glue there. So I need to grab my paper piercer and my mini brad, and I have my piercing pad here as well, and I'm just going to pierce a hole. To attach to my project, I'm going to use the Stampin' Dimensionals. I like to use them not only because they add dimension by popping the project up, but they're also super sticky. So I use them for a little insurance here so that my parts and pieces of my project don't fall apart. So I'm going to layer one right over there where all the seams meet for my wings and my legs. And then I'm going to layer another one here where the wings meet the body and squish those down. So I've got two on the back of this piece. And then for my hat, I'm going to add one on the back of that, just covering up that brad and securing those two pieces together as well. Thank you so much for stopping by today. Have fun creating some adorable things for the grads in your life. For the full supply list and ordering information, go to my blog, SueStampfield.com. Bye-bye. See you next time.